The Bloody Podcassacre with Zac Walters and Kennedy Catherine.
We are live.
Thank God this is never actually live.
Right? If and when we have to do that, people are going to realize how much editing goes into this.
I was thinking about if we ever were to interview somebody or like have a guest on our podcast, how terrible it would be for them.
No.
You don't think?
I have to do that professionally.
I don't.
So I would just have you sit off to the side a little bit.
And be like, Zach, you're going to ask these certain questions.
I was going to say you would have pre-approved questions and pre-approved remarks and responses.
And I'm okay with that.
We'd go from there. Welcome back to another episode of The Bloody Podcassacre. That's Zac Walters.
And that's Kennedy Catherine.
Thank you.
You said Zach this time.
I did, specifically for you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. It's for nobody else but me.
No, it's just for you.
The wig. I thought you were going to take off a wig.
The final reveal, my final form. I really am Amanda from St. Maud.
It really just like, the way you were scratching the back of your neck, it looked like you were just about to like rip off a wig. And you know what?
Would it be surprising?
Yes, actually.
Yeah, because my hair is not nice enough to be a wig. Speaking of, I need to text my mom because she just texted me to ask. What's the name of the two drag queens that you like?
Are you putting their full names?
I just said Trixie Mattel and Katya Zamo.
Samolochikova.
I mean, I could probably spell it.
I can smell it from a distance away.
I feel like, Katya, you could smell from a mile away.
Yes.
Brian McCook. I'm into him, though.
I don't think I met Katya.
You did?
I've met both of them.
And?
I don't think either one of them had a distinct scent.
Sometimes if I have, like, an internet crush or a crush on someone that I don't have access to, one of my favorite things to do is remind myself that they smell bad sometimes.
Interesting.
They probably have bad breath. They probably smell bad. I bet they're rude to waiters every once in a while.
That's every, like, famous person. Ellen DeGeneres. I don't like her.
Me neither. And you know what? I really liked her when I was younger.
Me too.
But I started to get bad vibes a while ago. Mm-hmm.
My favorite tweet still to this day about Ellen DeGeneres is that she has the hairiest ass.
I could have broke some serious... There we go. Who tweeted that? Like,
I don't remember.
And it was just a joke. Okay, I was like, did someone like earnestly be like...
It was Portia.
Her ex-girlfriend, Anne Heche. Historically, Ellen has a super hairy ass.
Are her and Portia not together?
No, they are.
Oh.
Anne Heche and Ellen were together for years before.
Oh, yeah. I thought you said her ex-girlfriend and I was like...
Oh, no.
Portia, they're divorced?
No.
Divorcees?
No. I feel like those two are going to stay together forever because I'm pretty sure Portia is locked in by, like, contract at this point.
I don't know if I've seen Portia in anything. And I know she's an actress and she was in Arrested Development, yes, but I've never watched it.
There was this whole thing when everything was coming out about Ellen that when they did the reboot for Arrested Development, which I didn't watch, that her hours were super... I mean, I don't know how true this is, but there was this whole thing about how, like, her hours were super limited and she couldn't, like, have a regular shooting schedule and that it was in some way dictated by Ellen.
Just, like, let her go to work. Easy. It's not like she comes to the show every day to film a certain segment.
No.
So, anyways.
Let her live, Ellen.
Enough about Ellen.
Yeah, how did we even get here?
I don't know.
Oh, Katya.
And then we were talking about waiters.
Right.
Being rude to waiters, and then Ellen, and then...
It was a real snowball, if you will. But you know what we all really are? Strangers.
Ew. I have a lot of feelings about this movie.
I know you do, and I do too. And I was surprised by the amount of feelings that I had about it.
I think that this is going to be... This is, like, right below Midsommar for, like, my favorite movie.
I knew that about you, which I find interesting. Not because it's not good. I really love this movie, but something... I don't know. It doesn't always register for me when I'm thinking of horror movies.
Fair. This is, I was telling you this last time we were recording, but this is one of, like, the first scary movies I actively chose to watch, like, that I remember. Like, right. I'm sure I watched, like, clips of scary movies when I was younger that, like, you would pass through on the TV or something. But me and my brother and my two cousins, I remember specifically being like, let's watch this movie. And we sat down and watched it, and I was terrified, and I still am. We'll get into this a little bit later because I have a lot to say on it, but a lot of people online do not like this movie.
Yeah, I noticed today when I was looking that it isn't highly rated.
No. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, like, this movie is better because this movie came up before it, and this movie is really just doing this, and it's not something new. And I'm like, I get, like, that this isn't a new concept of home invasion. Because some people were comparing it to, like, Halloween.
I don't think that's a fair...
Yes, like, Michael Myers is this, like, masked figure who goes into a home.
Yeah, but he's more adjacent to, like, a Freddy or a Jason than he is to what this movie is. Because in Halloween or Friday the 13th, like, those are their own worlds in, like, a very unrealistic way. The Strangers is so much more, it's so centered in realism. These people who are these murderers are not a character.
I know. The thing that is like, there's no, like, twists and turns in which, like, reveals, like, there's this subplot to it where it's like, oh, there's, like, some ancient family heirloom that they're supposed to be getting back, or there's some drama that has happened, 50 years ago with both of their parents.
Yeah.
It's like, it literally is just, they were home.
If anything, I would think it's more reminiscent of, like, The Purge.
I remember, like, when looking, so a lot of the comments that I was reading were from, like, 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
When a lot of people were revisiting The Strangers because the new one was coming out. A lot of people were being, like, sharing the Purge trailer, and they were like, oh my gosh, this looks the exact same. But I also don't think it's the same movie.
No, I feel like we have that conversation a lot, and a lot of times it's just not fair to compare. You can do that with every movie. You can find something similar. I mean, nothing these days is really that original of an idea.
No.
But I feel like The Strangers really stands alone as its own thing.
I was reading this comment online about how this one guy was kind of playing the devil's advocate. Well, like, responding to people who were playing devil's advocate, saying that it was unoriginal. But this guy was saying that The Strangers spawned, like, a lot of similar movies. There was, like, these masks all of a sudden, because they weren't really prevalent in the early 2000s. They were, like, more 80s, 90s. Then we had, like, a dry spell of it, and then they kind of brought it back. I find it's, like, a classic almost at this point. But, like, we were saying also, like, a couple seconds ago, I was reading, like, horror is like art, where it's just, like, very subjective. And I was
horror is like art, and that it's very subjective.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just because someone finds something terrifying doesn't mean another person will. And it's like art. It's like, just because you like something doesn't mean somebody else will.
Right.
So that's something always to keep in mind.
One of the articles that I was reading said that even though they didn't do super well critically, it was a bit of a sleeper hit. Like, they still made money. This movie wasn't, it didn't tank at the box office or anything. I just don't think it was received super well by audiences at first.
I wish I would have saw this in the theaters. This is one of those ones where I'm like...
Yeah, me too.
I think... But also, well... Yes and no, actually. Because if I would have, I think it would have been way more scarier to me. Even though it terrified me. If I would have saw it in theaters, then I would have been like, not in my home, not happening.
I do think there's something about watching it in your house that adds such a level of fear.
Because then you're like, looking at everything around you being like, how can I get out fast?
And how can someone get in quick?
I know. And I always think about this when I'm watching scary movies, is when people... There's something inside the house and they lock the door. I'm like, you just lock them in with you.
Yes.
And I'm like, now you have to work about getting that unlocked as well.
It's not hard to unlock a door.
I know.
It doesn't take long to unlock a door. Also, how many times did she have to relock that door?
So many.
So many. Of course, in the times of COVID, I've not been alone for like a year. I watched this movie last night for the first time since I've seen it. And... I was deeply unsettled.
You were alone, you said?
Well, no, I'm not, but I wasn't last night. But now, and I still feel a little unsettled about it, now I'm going into a 3-day stretch, which will be the first time that I've been alone in my house in a year because my roommate's
Do you ever have these feelings when you're out at the cabin by yourself?
Yeah, I do. It's never that comfortable.
Is it pretty isolated?
It is, and it's really dark. And, like, there's no streetlights or anything, and there's no one during the week around. And so, more than anything... I'm fine if before it's completely dark, I get to closing the windows, locking the doors, closing the blinds and everything. But if for some reason I have to like go outside or I realize like one of the blinds is open and it's just looking out into literal pitch black, that is really unsettling to me because you can't see anything that's out there.
And something could just appear.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
And you're like, no, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
my one friend had a cabin, and we would go there quite a bit. But it was like, it felt more like suburban, if that makes sense. Like, cabins all the way down a road. It was never, like, super, like, isolated. But we watched Sinister in her cabin.
Nope.
And the way it was, like, set up is, like, there was a main floor, which had, like, a bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living room. Then there was upstairs, which had 2 bedrooms, and then, like, a little den kind of area. It was, like, an attic, but it had 2 single beds and just, like, a TV. And we watched it there, and it was the scariest moment of my life.
Yeah, no shit.
Because people would come up the stairs, and there was, like, an opening, and then all of a sudden you would just see a head. And it was like, oh, no thank you.
For me. Saying our cabin is completely isolated is not true. It's more so that the community that we're in is very small, and it's not, there's no traffic. You know, some of the bigger lake communities have, like, stores, and there's traffic of some sort, and it's not like that at all. When I was living out there that summer, our neighbor across the street, she was also living out there because she's a teacher. And so her and I would spend a lot of time together, and it was comfortable because she was there a lot of the time. But we both were big horror fans, and I would always go over there at night and watch something and then have to run back. And I would make her, stand outside of her door with their light on until I was like booking it into our cabin and finally home, because I was like, I'm going to get stolen in the night.
And it's probably, like, not that far of a jaunt from your cabin to there. No. Feels like probably hours of running. And
it until you're at that door, I mean, even inches away, you are like, it could still come.
It'll
the
just
hand
take
could
you.
grab.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that's what this movie is really.
Have you ever had a situation, we were discussing this last night, where if something like this was to happen, say you're home alone, it's like 3 a.m. and someone comes to the door. So someone comes to the door once. Are you going to answer the door? No.
Not at 3 a.m.
No, not at all. And so in this situation, I can see where, like, you've just gotten back from somewhere, you're not really conscious of the time, and you're not alone, that you might kind of, without thinking, answer the door.
Well, and also I think they were expecting their friend to show up.
No, not for a couple hours. He was supposed to come in the morning and pick him up. Even still, could have been somebody from the wedding party, who's to say. In that situation, my roommate was saying, if it happened twice, on that second knock that someone comes and asks the same question, I'm calling the cops. And I was like, I don't think I would.
I would.
Would you?
Yeah. I'm, like, very more like, I would rather be safe than sorry kind of thing.
That's fair.
I don't know if I've ever had to call the police for a situation where I was, like, in, like, a situation of being unsettled in my own home kind of thing. But, like, I've called the cops on, like, neighbors before because I was more concerned about, like, someone's life than, like...
Oh, yeah, I've done the same thing.
Sense.
Yeah, I've done the same thing.
But I would call the cops.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I was super unsettled in my own house.
Did I ever tell you the one about my friend?
No.
So I had this one friend, probably 4 years ago. We used to live together, and then we all kind of moved out of this townhouse. And she was living in an apartment, and somebody knocked on her door at 3 a.m., like, this whole situation. She, like, got up and was just trying to listen because for some reason her apartment door didn't have a peephole. She didn't open the door. It was just her and her cat. She was like, don't need to, like, I wouldn't answer it. Like,
no,
especially
you're not
when...
expecting anyone. Why would you answer?
And I'm pretty sure she was sleeping. So she, like, just walked to the door, like, didn't really turn on any lights, whatever. They didn't knock again, but, like, she heard a knock on another door. And then she found out the next day, like, these people had broken in, knocked on her neighbor, like, not directly across, but across and down.
Yeah.
And they broke into his apartment and stabbed him 17 times with a screwdriver and just took his TV.
Yeah, you have told me that story. That's so tragic and insane. And God, is she lucky.
Mm-hmm. I know. I'm pretty sure, like, it was, like, months after that she finally got a peephole.
It's wild to me that an apartment wouldn't have peepholes.
After an incident like that they wouldn't spend that kind of money to make sure that their tenants are safe and not all moving out.
In my parents' house, I hated that we had a glass front door with no covering on it. Because there was really no way, unless you were upstairs, because if you were upstairs, you could kind of look around the stairs in a way where you were a little bit protected. But if you were on the main level and someone knocked and it was late, like, there was no way to not be seen by whoever was at the door. And I would never have that in my life again. I hate that feeling.
I don't think I've ever had that, but, like, we've had frosted glass where it's like you can't make out who's behind there, but you could tell someone was there.
Right.
Another thing that was, like, a lot of people are like, oh, this doesn't scare me, but in my field of work, I see these kinds of things.
Totally. Of course.
And so I'm like, it freaks me out because I see the real world implications of a lot of these things.
Yeah, I think about that a lot with you and how you must carry a lot of strange fears around stuff like that from specifics that you would know.
but also just this movie in general has still traumatized me to this day, I believe.
Oh, yeah. So should I tell you guys what this movie is all about before we get into more?
You know what I realized? That this movie really doesn't have the biggest plot.
It's also short. It's an hour and 26 minutes.
Love that.
I love that. I really went through this one a lot because the synopsis for it was super long, but I think I did a good job. That was mostly for me and you. I think I did a good job, everyone. You ready?
Born ready, baby.
Kristen and James return to James's family's remote summer home following a friend's wedding. Tension is thick between the couple after Kristen rejects James' marriage proposal. The two are in the midst of rearranging their trips home when there's a knock at the front door. It's about 4 a.m. and a young blonde woman stands at the door, her face obscured by a burnt-out door light. Is Tamara home, she asks. They tell her she has the wrong house, and she walks off into the night. James fixes the light and leaves to buy cigarettes and clear his head. While Kristen stays at the house alone, the blonde returns. But this time, Kristen does not open the door. The smoke alarm goes off soon after, and it clatters to the floor when she reaches to turn it off. Banging begins again at the door. She locks it and calls James to hurry back. The line goes dead, and she plugs her cell phone into charge. As she stands in the living room of the house, a man wearing a sack mask emerges from the hallway behind her and watches silently as she gets a glass of water. She doesn't notice before he's gone. When more bangs come from the front door, Kristen notices that the smoke alarm is neatly sat on the center of a dining room chair rather than the floor. She hurries to grab her cell phone, but it's nowhere. She pulls the curtains back to see a masked man standing there. He slams his hands into the window. The front door opens slightly and a doll-like mask peers through. Kristen rushes and locks the door and hides in the bedroom. Footsteps come down the hall to reveal James, entirely unaware of what is going on. After Kristen explains, he goes to the car only to find the car a wreck and his cell phone gone. When he returns to the house, his cell phone is sat on the piano, battery removed. The two try to drive away, but a truck pulls up behind them and rear-ends the car as they scramble back into the house. They find a shotgun along with the word hello written all over the bedroom in red lipstick. They hide in the room armed with the gun. James's friend Mike, whom he'd called earlier for a ride, arrives early and goes into the house. Seeing the house is a complete disaster, he walks down the hallway suspiciously. As he steps in the doorway, James fires the gun. He dies instantly, and after a few seconds, they realize they've shot the wrong person. Their stalkers paint killer on the door to taunt them. Mike heads to the barn outside to use a radio for help, and when Kristen follows, she falls and twists her ankle before making it to the barn to find that James is not there. As she connects the radio, it's destroyed by one of their stalkers. Kristen crawls back to the house where she hides in a pantry. One of the stalkers eventually finds her and taunts her as the masked man enters the house holding a defeated James. Both Kristen and James are knocked unconscious in a struggle. Then it's daylight, and each of the strangers looms over the two now tied to chairs. "Why are you doing this to us?" Kristen asks, to which one of them replies, "Because you were home." Each villain removes their mask and takes a turn stabbing both of their victims before leaving in their pickup truck. As they drive down the road, they stop to talk to two young boys delivering religious pamphlets. They ask for one. The boys approach the house to find a bloody and disastrous scene. James lies on the floor dead, and Kristen in the hallway. One of the boys approaches her body, and just as he's about to reach for her, she grabs his arm and screams in terror. The strangers. How you feel?
Good. I went on a
Liv
quick...
Tyler hunt?
Well, I did, and then I stopped.
Right.
And then I got onto a... Are they going to do a third Strangers?
Really?
Well, that's what I was trying to find out. But then I got into a whole, like...
The new one isn't that old. It came out in 2018.
Yeah, and I absolutely did not like it.
I never did see it.
Didn't hold the same caliber that the first one did.
Right.
But a lot of people were saying that the original Strangers was more 70s grim kind of horror, whereas The Strangers, the second one, Prey at Night, was more of like an 80s slasher film. And I can totally see that, but the storyline in the second one and the way that it went, it didn't grip me as much as the first one did.
Right.
But anyways, I was wondering, she was supposed to apparently have a cameo in the second one.
Liv Tyler was?
Yeah.
Yeah, because her character ostensibly is still alive.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, apparently it didn't come to fruition, so...
So do you know much about the production of this movie?
I don't know a lot about production-wise. I went on a deep search trying to figure out more about... The whole tagline is inspired on true events kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I was trying to find out more, and I saw that it's supposed to be based on the Manson family kind of thing, but then also the Ketty cabin murders, which I know that you know quite a bit about.
I do.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about it?
I would.
Me,
I
even
would.
though I have a copy and pasted paragraph here.
I do actually want to tell you about it. I have sort of summarized the case. It is one that I've known for quite some time. So Brian Bertino, I believe, is the director. Well, I know it's the director. I'm just not sure if I'm saying it right. But this is based on about 3 different things they say. So the first is the Manson family, like you said. The second is from his childhood, actually, and that he recalled a night where he'd been home alone and someone knocked on the door asking for someone who didn't live there. And he later learned that those people were knocking at people's doors and then robbing the houses of people who weren't home. This being inspired by the Ketty cabin murders is not validated. We're not sure that that's true.
Right. I did see that. It was just mostly like...
Helter Skelter, the book about the Manson murders, is what it was mostly based on. But this case is fascinating.
Do you think that there's a kind of connection to it?
Oh, I can see how someone would think that. Totally. Here, I'll tell you about it because it's really interesting. It's very sad, but it's interesting because this case has gone on for so long. So it's still a cold case. These murders happened in 1981. On the morning of April 12th, Sheila Sharp returned to her home at Cabin 28 in the Ketty Resorts in California from the next door neighbor's house. They'd lived there for about a year. So inside the house were the bodies of her mother, Glenna, who was also called Sue, her teenage brother, John, and then John's friend, Dana. The 3 had been bound by medical and electrical tape and had either been viciously stabbed, strangled, or bludgeoned to death. Sheila's sister, 12-year-old Tina, was nowhere to be found. But even weirder, in the adjoining bedroom, the 2 youngest boys, Ricky and Greg, and their 12-year-old friend Justin were found unharmed and had apparently slept through the entire massacre, which unfolded just feet away from them. Very odd. It was discovered eventually that Tina, the 12-year-old, was missing, and the FBI was called to the scene. The sheriff at the time said, "The strangest thing is that there is no apparent motive. Any case without an apparent motive is the toughest to solve." Further, the home did not indicate forced entry. The cabin's telephone had been left off the hook and all the lights had been shut off, as well as the drapes had been closed. But more confounding is that those boys were allegedly unaware of the event, even though a woman and her boyfriend in the cabin next door woke up around 1:30 in the morning to what they described as muffled screams. But they went back to bed because they couldn't figure out where the screams were coming from. So how are they hearing this, but the boys aren't? But then later, the boy's friend, Justin, said that he saw the mother with 2 men in the house that night, and that John, the oldest brother who was killed, and his friend Dana had come into the house and argued with these men, and that it had resulted in a violent fight. But we don't really know what the truth of that is. After that fight, Tina was allegedly taken out the cabin's back door by one of the men. It was another 3 years after the murders that Tina was found. A man discovered a human skull about 30 miles away. Near the remains were her jacket, a pair of jeans with a missing back pocket, empty surgical tape dispenser. So kind of what would eventually unfold is the likelihood that the crimes were committed by Martin Smart, who was the father of Justin, the young friend.
Okay.
His ex-wife accused him and presented quote-unquote evidence that would never really be qualified, including a letter that he'd written to her at the time of the murder, which was also the time of their divorce. And he concluded the letter by saying, "I've paid the price of your love, and now I've bought it with 4 people's lives." And apparently, at the time, it was overlooked and never submitted into evidence. So in 2016, a hammer that was owned by that man and matched the description of the murder weapon was found in a local pond. But he had died of cancer in 2000, and other DNA was found at the scene that would indicate multiple people were there. So to this year, you can find occasional updates of evidence and breaks in the case, but 40 years later, it remains unsolved. And so I can see how that was a connection. One of the other facts, I don't know that I wrote it out, that was kind of odd is that they could tell that where the bodies were tied to these chairs, that's probably not where they died. Yeah, it's super odd.
I wonder if those 3 boys were, like, drugged in a sense, in which that they were just knocked out.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense.
But even if it was the father, it could be a possibility. But did he know that his father showed up?
I don't know. One of the details from this case that always sticks in my head, because we've talked before about how it's shocking to see your own or other people's reactions in emergency situations. So the daughter comes home, finds her mother, her brother, and this friend dead. She goes to the neighbors, and the dad of that house came to the boys' bedroom window and got them out through the window so that they wouldn't have to walk through the front of the house.
Smart.
And that just sticks with me because I'm like, maybe that's obvious, but, you know, people's problem solving in those moments, to think of things like that is so smart to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd be like,
here we go, boys.
Let's go.
Walk on through.
Ay.
It's so annoying to me how many cases there are like that from like the 80s and the 70s where the cops were just completely incompetent and bungled the whole thing.
Well, it's just like, you're not going to put that letter into evidence because of what?
Because of what?
There is obviously some sort of like connection with this, with like...
There is. The sheriff knew this man.
Of course.
Yeah.
There it is.
There you go.
Ay.
Ay is right. You can see a pretty obvious connection there if you wanted to.
But at the same time, like, it could be any home invasion case.
100%.
So one thing I want to get into is that more about how a lot of people don't like this movie online. I think maybe because I have this nostalgia, but like, I don't understand. Like, people thought it was too generic and boring and that it was predictable. And I don't think that it was predictable.
I mean, I think it was pretty standard. I wouldn't say that it's like compelling in the way that there's a lot of twists and turns, but I think that that in and of itself can be really interesting because we so often see, like you said, you almost wait now for every movie to have some sort of, oh, and the killers are a long-lost cousin who's pissed about something. And the fact that it had none of that, I found more interesting.
One thing I saw online about, like, scary movies, again, is that the whole point of this movie is more to, like, thrill the audience versus the characters being scared, because there's a lot of criticism on the two main characters that their acting was really bad.
I thought their acting was great.
I thought so, too. They posted that the whole thing is just to creep out the audience and is trying to make you imagine how you would feel having someone watching you while you're unaware of it. And that most people and humans evolved to be paranoid about predators, which is why we easily see faces in everything. Is because we're trying to find hidden predators.
Okay.
And I was like, I do not like that. So the concept of being stalked or watched without someone knowing is against, like, our primal urge. Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, me
thinking
too.
about that. I constantly, like, when I'm trying to go to sleep, I'm like, I think someone's trying to break in and open the door.
Really?
All the time.
I lived in a house, and I think now I can sort of confirm to myself that I think there was some sort of weird energy in that house just because I constantly felt like I was being watched in that house, and I had sleep paralysis in that house.
I've never had sleep paralysis.
It's awful.
I never want to have it.
It's terrible. I've had it twice, and it's terrible. But that was the only time in my life that I consistently, like, any time I was going to sleep, felt like I was being watched. Otherwise, I'm a very comfortable, like, I've always been comfortable in my own home. I've never felt like, I'm not a person who's fearful of break-ins or anything like that.
I still, to this day, like, it's so strange, but, like, I always sleep with my bedroom door closed.
Me too, no matter what.
But living in this place with now having a cat, I don't. He wants to go in and out. I hate that. I hate being able to look into a hallway or just, like, a dark area while I'm sleeping.
Yeah, it's
I would much
not
rather
it.
be in an enclosed space knowing that there's nothing that if I can't see it,
then it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Yes.
But, like, I love sleeping in complete blackness.
Me too.
But I don't like there being an abyss.
Yeah, I follow the exact rule of if I can't see you, you can't see me.
Yeah. And we will live by that rule until the day we die.
We will live Tyler by that rule. Just to the point about the acting, because I think this is interesting. This is one of the only things that I've heard about the production, is that, first of all, Liv Tyler got tonsillitis because of screaming.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Do you have your tonsils?
Yes, I do.
I do not. Snip, snip. They
don't do that anymore, apparently.
I got my laser removed.
Something about that is just like, what are tonsils? Like, why?
Right? They're literally skin flaps in your throat.
And it doesn't matter if you have them or not. I
No.
wonder if they're going to be like wisdom teeth, in the sense that because so many people have them removed, that we will start to evolve out of them. Because, like, kids are being born without wisdom teeth now. Not all of them, but sometimes.
I fucking wish.
Anyways, so she got tonsillitis because of the extreme screaming. But to the point about her acting, she specifically asked to not see the masks pre-filming. So the first time that she saw the pinup girl mask was in the scene where she gets stalked outside of the barn. And the actress who played the pinup girl said, I had strict instructions not to let Liv see me in the mask before we shot. The first scene that I shot was stalking her outside of the barn. I had been told that she really wanted to be scared. She didn't want to have to fake it. And so it was my responsibility to scare her. So we shot that scene. I ran at her. She started actually screaming and then she kicked me away.
Wow. Do you know what else they did that on?
What?
They did that on the new It movie. They would not show the kids what Pennywise looked like.
Oh, but they're so little. That's not fair.
But they gave them the warning. Like, they were
Right.
like, we're not going to show you. One of the first scenes that they filmed, I think, was that ending scene where they're all in that water. And so their genuine reactions of them screaming are because it's, like, the first time they get to see it.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, also this film was shot in chronological order, which is rare.
Interesting.
Yeah. I feel like that has to be so helpful as an actor.
I think so, but then at the same time, I'm just thinking, like, this movie all takes place at night other than the daytime shot
in the
when they're
morning.
morning.
Yeah.
But, like, that's like 1917. They shot it in chronological order.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so they had to wait, though, if it was raining, for the next scene.
Well, they did say, like, outside of a couple technical things with weather, it was shot in chronological order.
Interesting. I wonder why they would do that.
Okay, you know what? I'm having a thought about the acting.
I think here's what a lot of people were mad at, is that they were unhappy with the decisions that they made their characters.
That's what I was going to say, is because I feel like they were given a tall order in the beginning of the movie to have to act out this crazy tension because they have just kind of broken up, but like not really made the formal decision yet. She just like isn't ready to get married. And they kind of have the unenviable task of trying to create characters while also like in that situation that you'd be in, you would be really quiet. My feeling about Liv Tyler in the beginning was just like, why is she is so quiet and sort of emotionless, but what option does she have? She's in a house with the guy whose marriage proposal she just rejected.
True. Yeah, I didn't hate their acting.
Neither did I.
And I think that, like, the beginning part, it was a lot longer than I remember it being.
Me too,
For some reason.
yeah.
I thought it was a lot shorter and they got into it a lot faster. But I thought, like, it was a really good, like, quick character build. We got to know who these characters were, what was happening.
I did forget that he left at one point, and I was like, I absolutely, in that situation where it's 4 a.m. and someone has just knocked at the door.
I would not be alone.
Fuck no.
Also, I would not, if you want to go get cigarettes, I will sit in the back of the truck. I will not talk to you if you would like alone time.
Yeah.
But I will be quiet.
Quiet as a mouse. But
Yeah.
let me come with you.
Yes, I'll sit in the box of the truck. I'll lay down. You won't know I'm there, but do not leave me alone.
Yeah,
in
I'll
this house.
I'll lay down in the back seat.
Yes.
You have no idea I'm here.
I won't put a blanket over me.
Yeah.
I'll be. I'm gone. But I am not being alone in that house.
Yeah, fuck no. Not with that creepy record player. Someone's knocking at the door.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they're in a rural area, and a woman comes to the door who is clearly not with a vehicle.
And also,
Do you
like, you
think she
probably know all of the people around there somewhat.
Right.
But it's
you
not
would
their
know
cabin.
that you don't recognize her. Do you think she's just going to walk off into the night and be completely gone? She didn't have a car.
Anyways, one
Sorry.
thing about, like, the whole, like, Kristen and James way that they deal with it is that a lot of people were saying, like, well, it makes a lot of sense because you make reasonable split-second decisions which are based on adrenaline, which you don't know are going to work or not.
Right. 100%.
And we've talked about that a bunch. The first thing they do is they check the phone. It's missing. And she checks the cable of the phone. It's gone. They go to the car. Cables are cut. And then they get the shotgun and they wait. But then they accidentally kill the wrong person because they have no idea.
Tragic. I forgot
That is so... It's so disappointing because it's like... He's literally dressed up in the same attire.
Yeah.
If someone walks on the corner and you know that someone's trying to terrorize you, you're not going to, like, wait 5 seconds just to be like, hey, are you the bad guy? You're just going to shoot out of fear.
I'm just going to say it. They were totally validated in that moment.
Yes.
And it's awful. Like, I kept thinking, imagine by complete accident that happens and you are mourning the loss of your best friend while also trying to live through the fact that you did it.
Yes.
Best of luck to you
And
in
also
your
trying
future
to
endeavors.
live in general.
Just trying to stay alive because you are also being stalked by 3 murderers. The second that you see someone's face, I would be like, shh, fuck, because if they let you see their face, you are
dead. The one thing I really love about this movie is you don't get to see them.
never.
And, like, you get glimpses. Like, you can get silhouettes of them or, like, them barely taking off their mask and it cuts. The thing that's so great is, like, they're just regular people and they will just go into the morning living their lives.
And
like,
we don't know, like, who they are. We have no idea what their
Nope.
relationship is to each other. I think based on the last line, which is the 3 murderers get into this pickup truck. They stop. They see these two boys who are out handing out religious pamphlets. The blonde girl asks for one, and they're like, are you a sinner? And she says, sometimes, and takes the pamphlet. And then they get in the car. She's sitting in the middle, so there's a man and a woman on the outsides of her. And the dark-haired woman says to her, it will be easier next time. Mm-hmm. So that makes me think man and dark-haired woman are a couple of some sort, in that she is coming under their wing, their murder wing. I'm so curious. Because it has happened a number of times in real life. How do people find each other to murder people with? Like, I've never in my life had a conversation with someone where I could even slightly get to the point where I could figure out that they would be okay murdering someone with me.
And I think that's good.
Yeah, I mean, maybe people are reading my energy, and so they're not going to tell me that. But, like, how do you get there with someone?
I don't know. And I don't want to.
You got to be unhinged as fuck.
Yes, and that's fine.
That's on you. That's fine.
Yep.
I don't need to be part of it.
It's not on us.
Nope. No, thank you.
Do you have any favorite scenes in this movie?
We completely neglected that for like the last 17 episodes. I forgot about the first appearance of him in the hallway. And when I tell you, I gasped. Yes. And also the part where Liv Tyler is sitting outside.
Is she on the deck? Like by the...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like mid to end of the movie. Mm-hmm. And she's kind of like, she's got her head down and she's kind of curled in on herself. We keep seeing glimpses of him walking through the house towards her. And I just wrote, sir, please, I need some privacy. I was like, give her a fucking minute, okay?
She just needs like a quick breather.
She does.
I wrote that my favorite scene is right after where he appears for the first time, and then she kind of like gets this like overwhelming sense that someone is watching her, so she picks up a knife from the kitchen and she's like, I should plug in the cell phone. She
doesn't get an overwhelming sense someone is watching her. They close a door in the hallway.
Right.
Which is fucking terrifying. Living here where we have furnaces running, there's a lot of cross drafts all the time. If you have windows open, doors get pulled closed in your house all the time.
My old apartment was like that. If I had the window open, I would jump.
I lived in an apartment like that where the doors were like, there was no stopper. They were quite far off the ground and they were super heavy. And so when they shut, they slammed. Oh, it drove me batty because it scares the shit out of you every time.
I know. And it's not like, I know that this is going to happen.
And even though you know what it is almost every time. Yeah. But still, your body has a second where you're like, fight or flight.
Yeah.
I'm going through the window.
It's flight. Yeah. It is never fight in this situation.
Anyways, sorry. So she hears it down the hall. She gets the knife.
And she goes to like call because she's home alone at this point. And she goes to call, but I think her phone died. So she goes to plug it in. And she notices that the cell phone cord has been cut. And she's like, Jesus Christ.
Shit.
Same. Because it's like, it's so little of a thing, but it's such
But it's big.
It's big. Yeah. Because you're like, that is a clean cut. Like,
it's not like my cord somehow combusted.
Yeah,
someone
or like you
cut the
snagged
cord.
it.
Yeah,
it is like a full snip of the cord. Anyway, so she's like walking around her house, and then she goes to she has a knife at the curtains of the patio door, and it's when she opens it and reveals that the masked man in the potato sack is there for the first time, and she like stumbles backwards, causing the record player to skip and start looping.
Yes.
That looping song will forever haunt me. And I am so terrified of it ever happening to my record player. This morning when I was watching it, similar thing happened with the doors. I had my patio doors open and the looping song came on and I was like, oh God. The wind took my curtains and pushed them forward. And I fully was like, goodbye. I just accepted it. I was like, somebody is behind those curtains and I am gone.
You know what? And who am I to say that they're wrong? Maybe it's my time.
And I'm okay.
And that's okay.
It.
I've lived a good life.
Yeah, we're fine.
Yep.
So you know that I love scary movie soundtracks.
Yeah.
So I was like, I wonder if there's a vinyl for this movie and if they put that looping song in it to sound like the song is skipping. The soundtrack is just like ambient scary music.
It's 9 scores, I think. Yeah.
So there's not like a lot to it, and it doesn't have any of the actual like vocal tracks that they play in the movie.
Right.
But upon looking on Amazon, someone named Janice Krause gave the soundtrack a review.
I cannot wait.
So this is from April 2nd, 2019. She gave it a 1 out of 5 stars.
Oh, fuck.
And titled the review for the soundtrack, "Do not bring this into your home or anywhere!" ! Okay? So she wrote, and I quote, "Horrible, horrible mistake I made on this order." thought it was something completely different and healthy to view. The Strangers is a kind of movie that should be banned completely forever. Very sick, 2 exclamation points. Just the music to begin with you tells you what it is. Didn't watch the movie, of course, though. Satan is clearly at his work here.
Janice. Honey.
And I literally was cackling to myself, and I was like, Janice Krause.
You know who sounds like they would hate the Bloody Podcassacre more than anything?
Janice
Krause.
She might like it. Maybe I should, oh my gosh, should I reach out?
You should.
I'm going to let her know that we reviewed her favorite movie.
I have a strong feeling that Janice lives in Ohio.
She probably does.
Yeah, that feels really right.
It did say that her review was from the United States, so one pin closer to Ohio. Anyways, that's Janice.
Hilarious.
And that was my quick little sidebar of searching about The Strangers today, and that I found this wonderful, wonderful review about the soundtrack. Satan is clearly at work here.
I would say so. I would say so. If I believed in Satan, I would think he is at work here. I had a memory yesterday while I was watching this, because my roommate is gone now. So, of course, I'm going to go home and die.
She's not dead. She's just...
Oh,
she's left.
She's left us. She's departed.
She's gone on a work trip.
Yeah, sorry. She's gone on a work trip. But anyways, obviously, she hasn't been gone in a long time, as I said, COVID. But one of the last times that she was gone on a work trip, I was out for drinks with friends. We all get an emergency alert on our phones, saying that there has been a breakout of the psych center, the criminal psych center, and that there's 2 dangerous people at large in the community. And that is mere blocks from where I live, really. I was driving back into the area, and it is legitimately crawling with police. It's late at night and the sky is lit up with red and blue, and like it is clear if you get a knock on your door or anything, do not answer. I have to go home back to my empty house by myself that has been sitting empty because my roommate has been gone this whole time. That whole night, that is probably the only time that I have been in my house being like, and you know what? I feel safe and unwell. And then the next morning, social media is full of people in my areas, Ring doorbells, the ones that videotape, they were going through people's yards in my area like crazy.
And did you get home and were you one of those people who, did you check every cupboard? Or did you just go to bed and you were like, I am going to be okay with whatever happens?
Zach, I would like you to answer that question for me.
You did just went to bed.
I just went right to bed.
Do you know one thing that I loved that Liv Tyler did? Well, that her husband did? They first went and checked the shower.
They did, yeah.
And I was like, good on them.
Yep.
Because when I am home alone and I'm like not feeling great, I open the shower curtain.
What
is it about
shower curtains? We've been taught people will be hiding behind there. I do the same thing.
Like, what is it? Like, why do we think that we think killers think that's a good hiding spot?
You know what's weird is I never feel that way in my house. Ever. I never have to open the shower curtain. However, if I use someone else's bathroom in their house, doesn't matter, time of the day or night.
Do you check mine?
No, but that's because I know you would hear me. But like if I'm if I'm like in someone's house and I'm like suspicious, I will always look in their bathtub.
Yeah.
I just want to know. Because how many movies have you seen where even if there's not someone like a killer, they're keeping a body there?
Oh yeah.
What would you do? Like, you're at your friend's house. Like, you're at my house.
Yeah.
You open up the shower curtain and there's a body in the bathtub. What would you do?
I wouldn't say anything.
I wouldn't say anything either.
Because I would... But the problem is like, the people would know that you looked.
But would they?
I don't know. You gotta act really good.
There's no way. My face would betray me. I know it. I'd be like, oh my God, hey. I'm throwing up.
You're pale.
Yeah, right?
Fully pale. Like, eyes are a little, like, crying.
I have a skin condition called rosacea, and the second that I am slightly alarmed, upset, unhappy, if I am not between, like, a 3 and a 7 on the emotion scale, red, you would know.
Interesting.
Have you never noticed that?
I don't think so.
I wear a lot of makeup.
Interesting also.
What?
Never picture you wearing a lot of makeup.
Well, okay, that's a lie. I do not wear a lot of makeup. I wear a green foundation under my foundation that offsets the redness of my skin. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you would have to just play it out.
Yeah.
In that situation of being cool, calm, collected until you can safely leave the house without it being conspicuous of being like, I was just in the bathroom, now I have to go.
But what if it was like one of your closest friends? Because I've had friends in my life for,
what if it was one of your closest friends and then it was another close friend in the bathtub? Then what would you do?
Oh, fuck me.
Like it was someone you knew in the bathtub.
My instinct, if I could, like say the setup of...
I would lay on top of the body in the tub and just be like, I'm next.
I'm next, I guess. No, I think that if I could, so say the layout is similar to your place. So we're in the living room right now. If I was in the bathroom and you were sat as you are right now with your back to the rest of the room, I think I would try to walk out. I think I would try to get out of the house. Because what are you going to do? If it's somebody I don't recognize and it's like one of my best, because I mean, I've had my best friends for over a decade. I think a part of me would be like, hey, what the fuck?
You're now chatting
complicit
with them. Yeah.
But you are either way. So whether you acknowledge it to them or not, you still know.
I don't know.
That's a moral dilemma. Because
it's also like, would you, if your friend called you and asked you to hide the body, would you? I
don't think we can talk about that on this podcast.
Right.
The honest answer to those questions always for me is I genuinely don't know.
I don't know either.
Because I think like
you've never had to be put in that situation.
I do think a part of my panic response would be yes. To do it.
I think also, like, the same.
I know myself. I know I would never have any staying power. If I had to do something like that, if I accidentally killed someone, if I had to hide a body, like, I know myself, it would be 3 days before I was, like, hospitalized for exhaustion and stress and fear. So I know I could never live through it. Same. But immediately, I think my response might be yes. For someone I really love, who's like, I'm in trouble, I need help, I don't know.
The lengths you'll go through.
Right?
To help those you love.
That's what this is all about. I do have some notes that I kept, and I just would like to run through them really quick so that I can feel satisfied.
I'm ready.
My first note. When you're in emotional pain, ice cream hits different. When he got that tub of ice cream out, ugh.
He knows what's up.
I love ice cream, but there is nothing quite like ice cream when your heart is shattered.
I'm not the biggest fan of ice cream, but when you're sad, it hits so different. And now I live so close to that ice cream shop. Again.
You're so lucky.
It's not going to be good.
No, it's going to be great. I simply would not answer the door at 4 a.m. No, I don't answer the door at my house during the day.
For the delivery food driver that I know is coming.
No.
I'm like,
no.
Leave it. He knocks and I'm like, you can walk away now.
I put it specifically in my delivery instructions, leave it on the door.
I do too.
Like,
on the door.
I would be so spooked if someone knocked on the door and then that person left me. Yes. Oh yeah, no, I've gone through all of these. Okay, that's it. Ice cream hits different when you're in emotional pain, and don't answer the door at 4 a.m. Words to live by.
Getting that tattooed on my knuckles.
Please do.
Do not answer the door if it is 4 a.m. 2 fists.
There we go.
Wow.
The Strangers.
Should we rate it?
Let's do it.
Scary.
Ooh, I'm gonna go, like, the first time I saw it and combination of this time, it really got my heart rate up. I'm gonna give it about a 7.
I put, honestly, an 8 verging into a 9.
Yeah.
It's just something about this movie that really just strikes a nerve with me.
Me too.
Unsettling.
I'm gonna give it probably a 6 in the sense that I know it sticks with me and I know that I have that little tingle up my spine, but it doesn't make me feel scared in the aftermath. It just makes me feel a little like, ooh, I'm aware.
See, I gave it another 8 again because I think about it often.
Yeah.
Like, not the movie, but the concept
Totally.
a lot. Story?
That's kind of a complicated one.
I gave it a 5.
I was going to say a 5 or a 6.
There's not a lot to it, but it packs a punch.
I agree with that.
The story is them trying to live.
And I don't think that there was ever any intention of there being a larger story.
No.
So for the story that there was, yeah, it's like a 6 for me.
Yeah.
Cool.
Was it a paper cut? Or was it a bloody massacre?
When they shot the friend and his brains were on the wall, but not everyone was dead yet, that's what that was for me.
They were massacred, but I wasn't, so thank God.
I literally want to stop the podcast there. I want to be done. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach, for that. That was a treat. Yeah, you're right, though. They really were.
It was a bloody massacre for them.
Not for me, though.
Not for me.
So you can follow us on TikTok, Twitter, or Instagram at Podcassacre. Instagram really is the place to be. That's where all of our updates go. You can subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube. Leave us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. We super appreciate it. And that's kind of that.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Lock the door, pretend you're safe, and tell yourself there's nothing to fear.